have stopped.
So Uday, one question, while you're bringing it up.
Sure.
So is there a way you can actually track the performance of the users who are actually doing, like in terms of,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I'll show you
like,
some MI on that.
okay, okay.
We can track everything, how many pieces of work each person has done, how long they took for it, who are the performers, who are behind schedule, are they doing it as per benchmarks, who's creating defects, errors, everything.
Since our requirement is more of a micro tasking and the benchmarks will differ, so is it customizable to our requirement?
When you say
Each task
benchmarks,
can have a different benchmark.
Each task will have a different benchmark.
Yes. You can say for each type of task what is the benchmark time within which they should finish it, and you can track who are the people who are successfully doing that and not.
So that data can be historical so that we can compare it, and then, for example, if we want to assign some task which is specialized, and we can identify that person and post it to them.
Yes, when you say historical, only for things which have been launched and worked for in this platform.
Exactly. Yeah,
yes,
that is what that.
Yes, it is
Okay.
historical
So
and running.
We can qualify the workers based on their performance, right?
Absolutely. There is one specific report I will show you which does that.
And these qualification things comes default, or we'll have to kind of customize it?
All this is default.
Okay.
You have to actually only own the type of work you're doing. The entire infrastructure to manage it, track it, perform it, report on it, all that is out of the box.
Okay, so one question, Uday, how do you differentiate your platform versus a crowdsourcing platform, and also something like a ServiceNow?
ServiceNow workflow, or even
two things, right? How do you differentiate your platform from a crowdsourcing platform, and how do you differentiate it from a ServiceNow?
See, I cannot answer the first one, Abel, unfortunately, because I don't have much knowledge on a crowdsourcing platform. From a ServiceNow perspective, there is one slide which, if you don't mind, I can just show it to you in a short while. We're almost through here. I just want to finish the flow so that we don't lose context.
Then why don't you complete it, and then we'll do that. Yeah.
Okay. So this was so if I just refresh this again, you see this was the last one we did, verify transactions. This was what the human user did, so Andy did that again, and then there was the last activity called import operations, which was again given to a machine, and that was rejected by the machine. Now this is what we call, so this is an intentional rejection for the demo, and this is basically what we call an exception. So sometimes if a machine fails, then a lot of businesses, there's a lot of effort which is lost in managing failures, exceptions, going through logs, bringing that out, checking what is the source reason, and then running the whole thing again. But Innate kind of simplifies all of that. The whole human machine interaction model is very seamless and elegant, and what has happened here is that if I go to back my my team owner's view, and I look into my view, I can see that something has landed here with a tag against it, with an orange tag against it. If I open and look through all the activities, okay, let's say I'm auditing it, I see Andy did something, then the machine did something, then Andy did something again, and I can see this is rejected. Now as the human user, if I open it and look, I can see the machine has actually told me that the SPPS system was not reachable, right? So the bot has come back saying the reason I couldn't finish it because something went bad. Now you can do a bunch of things. Now sometimes when things go wrong like this with machines, it might be a problem with the business users who didn't give it the right data set, right? Sometimes it might be an issue with some target system being unreachable or something technical. So what you can do then is take this error and send it right back to the relevant team itself. So what happens with that is you don't have to track things which happen successfully. Everything which successfully closes off. Things which go wrong, you can put them right back to maybe somebody who started that piece of work, or maybe somebody else's inbox who can actually action it and then give it back. Now how you deal with this is exactly how you deal with a human. For example, you can say something like, you know what, this is too complicated, I will do it. you can say I will assign this to somebody else, or you can say there's somebody with more experience, for example, or you can tell the bot, you know what, let's just start again from one step, 2 or 3 steps behind because we did something wrong upstream. Or you can say, you know what, I will speak to the business, and once the business confirms, that time I will decide what to do with it. But all of these kind of options which are identical to how you manage a human trainee who is not able to do something. In this case, Andy sees that, okay, the system was not unreachable, and he might pick up this ID, go to the system and check if it's online and maybe complete it himself. So now if I come back here and refresh this, I can see that this is now, if I just refresh it again, this is now completed by Andy. Another thing which I get, so I can see basically Andy did something, Marvin, Andy. If I go to the timeline, this is the entire audit log of what has happened, so including all the comms. So this is what came in, who it went to, how much time they spent on it, who it got allocated to, what was done, how much, you know, all that information in one place recorded. Now another thing which I can do is, these are what we call queues. If I just go here, these are what we call queues. Queues are essentially skill groups. So this is where you define all the various types of work you might do with all the various people who have the skills to do it. And ultimately, you can even add various machines here. So for example, in this bot processing queue, excuse me, there are 4 bots and 1 human, and the reason for that is that if these bots go down, then Innate knows that this Steve Smith is the person who has the same skills, so that things don't get impacted and slow down. Innate will route things to Steve's inbox instead, and you can again give control to your ops users to move machines around, move people around, so on and so forth. Now, so basically you can handle loads and things like that. Now if I go to there were some questions about the configuration environment, how it works. So these are what we call different types of business lines or service lines. These are all configurable. Nothing is kind of out of the box. You can just add whatever you want. If I just go into loans, then another thing which you can see is these are, you can have 3 or 4 classifications. So you can be doing things, for example, for different customers or from different geographies, different service lines, so on and so forth. The one which we just saw was, I think, this one, loan drawdown. So if I just open it up, this is the process definition or the view of what we just processed just now. Now the question was what kind of skills are required to let me just open a draft version so I can edit it and show you. So what are the skills required to build something like this? It's essentially all click and do. So if I click this, I can see all the different types of activities which I'm authorized to do, which might be a part of my business process. I can say I want this activity to happen next, and you might say that, you know, in parallel I want to give something to somebody else, for example, that's basically what you need to do. Every time you give a skill, give an activity here, you need to define 3 more data points by when it should be finished, who does it go to, so which particular queue does it go to, and some general settings around it. There was another question about whether you can customize the checks. This is where you do that. So you can just say also check something else basically and save it, and that will then become available in that view. And that's it. There's nothing else in terms of configuration. It's pretty straightforward like that. If I just go back to other places, there are some other bits and pieces. For example, this is where you define fields. You just click build fields. So ultimately, I think the only point I'm making is that there is not really any programming. The one skill which you might need is something like JavaScript or HTML if you want to do something funky, which is basically not out of the box. For example, I select something in this drop down and some part has to hide and show somewhere else, or something like that. If you want to do, you might have to write some simple JavaScript, but in 90% of projects, none of that is required unless the business wants to do something unusual, basically. That is that. I'll just show you a little bit of MI, and then let's get into those questions. Now this is MI, this is on a recording I'm about to show you, but it'll give you an idea. Now 3 perspectives I will take you through. One is what we call, has the screen refreshed? Are you able to see?
Need to be refreshed
dashboard?
because needs to be.
Okay, I'll just wait for a second.
Why is it happening?
I'll just share again, in fact, just so that.
Yeah, it came up now.
It's funny, every time I stop sharing is when it seems to come up. So I've put a dashboard up. So when you see it, just let me know, please. I'll just continue then.
Yeah. Suri, you are able to see? Suri?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Delivery overview, right? I can see it.
Yeah, that's the one.
Most of the part are
For us, we have pacing issue.
Do you want to just rejoin again?
Yeah. Yeah, Uday.
Can you see the screen as well?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So I'll show you the screen from the MI from three perspectives. One is basically the delivery overview. So that's information about what all is happening right now. Second one we'll see is about performance, utilization, that sort of information about resources who are working on this. And the third one, I don't know if that will be of interest or not, but we can. I'll ask you when we get there. So the first one is delivery overview. So this is a health check across everything which is being worked on at this point in time. So what this is saying is that there are 1,685 days worth of work currently progressing across everyone. What this is saying is 15,000 items are being processed right now, and 570 of them are running behind schedule. Below that is various kind of Below that is various kind of volumetric information, volumes per geography, per customer, per process type, however you want, you can see it, or some other kind of classification. Below that is basically just about to come into view. Various types of load information, so outgoing mails, incoming mails, peak hours, calls, so on and so forth. Below that is benchmark times. So this is how much time you think every type of activity should be done in, and versus how much time actually is being taken by the people or the machines which are doing it. Then below that is heat maps. So this is busy hours of the day, busy days of the month. There's information about that. And the last one is capacity. This is the first indication of the question around managing, tracking effort, and how much utilization is there. So the brown bar here is about how much capacity is available. For example, you might say a human user is supposed to work for 8 hours a day. You might say a machine which is doing some sort of, let's say some kind of image annotation, it should be utilized for, let's say, 16 hours a day. So that's the schedule it's supposed to be run on, versus how much time it is actually working on is the blue, right? So how much effort has it actually logged? So that is one. The next one is going a little bit more in depth into that. So this is a team leader dashboard, which is looking at a bot team of 3, but you have the same version of the report which works against a human user base as well. So if I just go to the right here, I'm going to talk about this report in terms of it being human, so it's clearer. There are two axes. This is a grid-based report. There is a capacity axis and a productivity axis. Each of these blobs here represents a human user or a machine actually. In this case, let's just talk about humans. You want all your resources to be on the right top here, which basically means that they are doing things efficiently at a higher productivity level, which means that if your benchmark was 3 minutes, they're finishing it within 3 minutes. So they're working efficiently. And the it's on the capacity side, what it means is they're supposed to work, let's say, 7 hours a day, and they're actually putting in 7 hours worth of work. So that's why you find everything here. If you find stuff on the left top, that means basically they are efficient workers, do things fast, but you're just not utilizing them enough. So they are just logging maybe 4 hours worth of work in their 7-hour shift, for example. So you can kind of utilize them better before you before you bring in more people, for example. Or if this is for machines, that means you can utilize those machines more and give them more work before you have to buy additional licenses, things like that. If you see stuff on the right bottom, that means those are people who are working long hours but just not getting enough done. So there might be training requirements, there might be other things you can look at, maybe machines are slow, so on and so forth. if you see stuff on the left bottom here, that means neither are they working their entire shift, nor are they doing things productively. So you need to ask whether those humans or those machines are actually adding value to your business or not. So that's one kind of information. You can see this as per team, you can see this for process, you can see this in different sort of formats and bar graphs. You can see this who are the high performance, who are the outliers, who are the slow workers, all that sort of different MIs available.
So one question, like
Sure.
when you're tracking the performance, say for example, I have a task that I have listed here, and the task needs to be executed in a different system. Okay, wherein I have to click that link and then I have to do some annotation there, right? And the work is being done there. So what is the information that your tool is getting?
So if I go back here and open this piece of work, let's say for example this one. So this is the task. So let's say this is the task saying human validation. So let's say instead of saying human validation, this is saying annotation, and there's some instructions given here saying go to this system and do ABC, right? Because I leave this here and I go to the other system. Let's say I go here, open the other system, and I'm doing some work on the other system. What is happening here is that the time is being captured here, which is telling me how much duration is being spent doing this particular activity. Now I can come back here, and when I say it's all done and I go here and say submit it, then it knows how much time was taken for doing that type of activity. Now for some reason, if this goes wrong or you want to change it, then you can decide whether you want to give the users the ability to even go and update it, but typically that's not needed. Does that answer that question?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one for a human. For a bot, how the thing works is if you give a machine something, and let's say you have got some kind of a machine which does some sort of work, and you give that machine a piece of work, and for the machine also you can define a benchmark that within 3 minutes you want the machine to finish it. So Innate knows what time so if I go back to the example which I just ran, I think this was that example. And I look at this one. This is a machine activity. So if I go and open this machine activity, then what Innate also has tracked is how long the machine actually took for it. So the machine took 3 seconds in this case. So I'm even tracking that for different machines also.
Okay, and can you once again show me, how a task is getting published?
How a task is designed, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay,
correct.
So if I go here to Builder here, and I go into So this is basically a version of the loan process which I'm running for this particular customer, for example, and for this particular geography. Now I define these stages, these 3 stages, and then below the stages I put a combination or some permutation and combination of these are all reusable activities. So let's say I go here and say I want to, and there's some activity here which is not there. For example, let me just say something called image annotation is required. I can just say click here, I want image annotation. It is a type of one of these kind of activities. So it's, let's say something like this, and there are no special permissions, and I can say create. If I do that, then ultimately it will become available in this list, and once it's available in this list, I can just click on it here and add it underneath here. And then once that is done, I can go down here. I have to say give it 3 data pieces. When is it due? So I can select various types of things which say it is due 4 hours from when I get it, or you can say it's 3 hours before the deadline of this entire process, or I can say based on some schedule, so everything has to be finished on the 30th of the month. So based on that you can do calculations of in the first of every month you want everything to start. Various types of combinations like that you can say. Then you can say who does it go to. So you can say which particular queue you want it to go to. You want to go into this queue or this particular skill type queue, so on and so forth. And lastly, you have to say some general settings. So if I go here and open one of these general settings, so this is where you say something.
So I can specify it can be a crowd or whatever, right?
So when you mentioned queue, is it a crowd or a individual or any? It can be anything, right?
It can be anything. So this is a queue.
So I can specify a distribution list. Is that how it is?
Yes. So this is a queue. So what you have selected there is work from that activity goes into this queue, for example, and these are the 3 people or bots which can work from this queue.
So you define queues upfront, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And Uday, another thing, like you talked about the benchmarking, right? Where do we set when we create a task? Do you set the benchmarking for the specific task, or how is it done?
Yeah, I think
So
we
can
do
you go
that
back to
here.
the
Let
task
me just
itself,
go back
like
here.
task publication? Yeah.
Yeah, let me just go
Okay.
back here. I'm not. If I go here, I think it's somewhere here. Can you see here?
Yeah.
So this is the estimated duration for this activity, and this is basically the human version, and this is the bot version.
And those instructions is what you're actually provide. This is the instruction is where you provide how the task has to be executed, correct?
The instruction is here. So if I go and open this here, so if I go here, for example, and open this here, this is where I give the instructions, what we call checks. So I can say here and say, do this also, for example.
Is it possible to attach any documents or anything within that?
What you can do is give a SOP basically. You can give something like, if I open this here, then if there is an SOP attachment here, it will be available here. So you can give, for example, link to some SOP which is published somewhere.
Hey, Uday, have you seen Mechanical Turks? Mechanical Turks, M-Turks?
No. Sorry, what is
Okay.
that?
So that is actually like a platform where I
Okay.
can, put any task, right? With a set of instructions. So that will be a detailed thing. Say, for example, go to LinkedIn and search for these companies, right? And then I list 5 companies, right? And then find out, and pull the company URL for me,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm.
update it here, right? It's very simple like that, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So, and I need an elaborate text field where I can provide those information,
Mhm.
right? It could be about, something I can classify. Let's say I'm giving like 6 to 7 sentences and tell that, can you just tell whether this is positive sentiment or negative sentiment, something like that.
Mhm. So, what is the question, Abel? Is it whether
Yeah, so I want to kind of understand, from a task publication perspective, like, very simple rudimentary task, can be also done, right?
yes.
Not like a
So
complete business processes. I just want like 10 invoices. I want you to, some of the crowd to tell me, whether this is actually a hotel bill or whether it is a dining, it's a lodging or it's a dining or whatever, and extract the total value, right?
so you can have just a one one step and one action or activity
Absolutely. Very
model here.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have that. That's fine. Right? So
Okay.
ultimately you will take that and give it to the machine which does that. So innate does not have any kind of, what should I call it? Any kind of intelligence in terms of doing some work. Innate is an orchestration platform which lets you manage business processes and all the actors in it. So if you can give that engine a piece of work, if I've not seen what MTurk is basically, but if it's an engine which can be given an instruction, then Innate can be used to give it an instruction and get the response back and then manage the activity around it.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just posted in the chat this thing, the
Yeah,
website.
I see that. I see that Amazon Mechanical Turk.
Maybe you can refer that and see how it this thing. And the other thing is when you are showing about the queue.
Yeah.
So is it possible to qualify the workers in the queue?
When you say qualify in the sense?
Say for example, I work for any mundane task like for to do some Excel work. I can use one group. The other group would be specialized in doing a macros or pivot tables, advanced Excel levels where we want to get a work done.
Absolutely. So that's the whole intention here. So you can just add a new queue basically for the type of work which you're doing and decide which workers basically sit in that queue. And then you can move them around different queues as they develop additional skills.
So it's manually we need to do it. It's not something automated.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
say
it's
for
manual. It's
example,
manual. Absolutely, it's manual because the system cannot work out who knows what basically.
No, if we have the data, say for example, yeah,
So a bit of time.
in EY we have a something called discover page where individuals will be linked to their profiles. Where you have a metadata about their profiles and skill sets. Can it?
Oh, like that? No, no, no. It can't do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can it take from the metadata and?
No, it can't do that. What it
Okay.
The only thing which it can do is it can import a list of users and things like that from an Excel, but it doesn't have any intelligence to basically scan a website, extract the data, make sense of it, and then do something with
Okay.
it.
Okay. So, and how about automatically routing the workflow?
Yeah, that is possible. So that is basically, when I
Automatically assigning to the task as well as this thing for the users.
so
That is the
ultimately,
workflow we saw
yeah, so
for the work.
ultimately it routes a piece, every activity into one of these queues, right? Depending on what type
Okay.
of activity it is. And then any of these resources either will get pushed and assigned or ideally should pull because that is better for scaling and load balancing and utilization.
Okay.
So we have an option to select the boat also, right? I mean, which boat has to take it up.
Yes. So if you see this one, these are the 4 bots who are authorized to do this work from this queue.
Okay.
And if you want to, let's say you give the bot is not utilized enough, you want to give it additional skills, then you can actually you can go here and say, you know what, or there's load for, for the weekend there is load on one type of work. You can go here and say I want to add this bot. So that will temporarily for that period start working in this queue also.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Yeah, they can proceed. I mean.
Okay, so I think what we
One thing we want to touch upon in this call is that what is the key differentiator between the ServiceNow and N8?
okay, so let me just put up one slide. So ServiceNow basically what Innate is actually an orchestration platform. Let me put up the capability set. And Innate is the only single platform which manages humans and bots working together. So if you see my screen now, Innate does basically, I don't have a detailed understanding of what ServiceNow does, but basically Innate does, as far as my understanding goes, everything which ServiceNow does, but actually can do it across the machine world as well. Right now, if you see what are the key features here, service management is what we have been speaking about, how everything works properly in an efficient way in a timely manner. But ultimately, Innate does that. It does case tickets. That's what you saw. So that was a loan type case, which is basically a deep business process which can be orchestrated across humans and different types of machines. The ticket bit is basically the whole, how an email got picked up and anything coming from multiple different sources. So people putting something in different, file systems, dropping things somewhere, submissions from other websites, all of that can get picked up. And then workflow bit you saw of how that works. Then workforce management, all sorts of performance utilization, both for bots, machines, everything routing of work as to SLAs, making sure everything is done efficiently from an end-to-end perspective. Then human in the loop, if machines fail, automatically flipping back into the human world so that your BAU and SLAs don't get impacted.
You said you have a comparison, right? Do you have that comparison or something?
No, I don't have a comparison. I'm just calling out what Innate can do. What my understanding is, ServiceNow can do a lot of these things, but as far as my knowledge goes, ServiceNow cannot do it across machines as well. And Innate is the only standalone independent product which can orchestrate across different types of machines and humans.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about in our initial at a POC stage or even in the first year of operations, we are looking at only the human loop into the system. Like say for example, you have one side you will have a data labeling projects which will be like 20% of it, where we need to call APIs from like platform crowdsourcing platform to your N8. The other thing is more of a micro tasking for our GDS employees.
Yeah,
Is that possible?
yeah, no problem. That's how actually FNA is using it right now. There are no bots right now in FNA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Innate is actually, so let me just clarify one more thing. See, Innate as a product doesn't really, what should I say, doesn't really care which resource is doing it. Innate is focusing on managing things correctly, completely, efficiently, optimally, and it just so happens that sometimes humans do those things or sometimes machines do those things. So when you don't have machines, it's perfectly fine. In fact, even our licensing structure is like that. You can use one license for a human or a machine.
Okay.
Okay, so I was just saying, MI orchestration, ultimately everything in one box. That's what Innate is about.
So reporting and visualization it's all your own product, right? Is it something like that you have integrated with Power BI or Tableau or something?
Yes. So we have integrated. Let me show you that. Where did that go? That was here. So what you're seeing here is basically Tableau. So Tableau is OEM'd with Innate when you use Innate as a SaaS platform. if you do an on-prem deployment, then we are not resellers of Tableau. So either you have to use your own Tableau license, or you have to connect it with a Power BI or some other visualization tool. Now, I don't know if you decide to go ahead. I don't know if this will be part of the same deployment out of. So EY has already deployed one platform which is being connected, I think, to Power BI at the moment. I don't know if this project, if it goes ahead, it will land on that server. If it does, then you might end up using Power BI.
It will be either on-prem solution or our Azure cloud, our Azure hosted solution.
Okay, sure. So innate. So
We
what I was
hosted
saying
in
was,
our Azure.
sure. What I was saying was EY is already so EY FNA has already hosted some servers on your infrastructure. If you use that, then they are connecting Power BI to it. FNA. I don't know if you use that, you will use that, I suppose, or something else.
So if it is Power BI, how the visualization change? Is it the same thing? Or is it
So ultimately, you will point to our existing data structures. The graph rendering you will have to do in that tool. The graphs, I suppose, will look the same because the data is the same. The framework around it and all, I mean, all of this is Tableau on top. That will be something else.
So do we have to do some, development stuff for that in get the report running?
Yes. You will have to. So the standard dashboards will be available out of the box if within EY, because there will be one set of rendering which for what you're seeing right now, these ones will all be rendered by FNA. You will just use the point to the same versions but on your data. But anything which you want custom for your specific business line, that you will have to put your own visualizations together.
Okay.
But rest all workflow and everything is of Phoenix, right?
Correct. Everything is of Enate.
Okay. So if it is your platform, where you have hosted this platform?
So this is on AWS, hosted out of
AWS.
Europe.
Okay.
This is a British company basically, so this is all hosted.
Yeah. Got it. So in India, so what about for now with EY, where it is being hosted?
Right now, it is my understanding it is hosted in one of your in-house data centers, but I believe that will go on to cloud at some point soon. Into your
Cloud in the
cloud,
sense?
EY's cloud, your private cloud.
EY's cloud. Okay. So when we go for EY cloud, is it possible to have Tableau or it is only a Power BI?
No. So
we need to take a call.
Yeah, you need to take a call. If you have Tableau license, you can use that and use everything exactly how it is. If you don't have a Tableau license, you can procure one. If you don't use Tableau, then you can use Power BI.
Okay.
I presume we have Power BI, used across EY.
Yeah.
I mean, we are not resellers of Tableau, so we can't sell your license basically. That's all.
Oh.
And are there any limitation on creating the number of workflows and tasks? Like, is it limited to
No, nothing.
numbers, or you can keep the number? Okay.
No, you can do thousands and lakhs of transactions, and it is tested with about 25,000 users also. So it's highly scalable, basically.
So Uday, just a quick time check. We are almost like 15 minutes way ahead past our scheduled time.
Yeah.
So we have some list of parameters. Is it possible? I think so. Since we have passed our time scheduled time, is it possible for you to fill and we'll share that Excel with you, and you can go through it and then fill it and send it back to us, which maybe we can circle back within and socialize it with our team, and then maybe take the next step.
Yeah, sure. Send it to me. I will fill in some at a high level and give it back to you. And then we can drill down on what is required. Okay. Does this look useful to you overall?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. The only thing is that the crowd numbers and the cost part of it.
Yeah, cost is something which we need to, because initially we will be doing a prototype kind of a thing, and then slowly scale it up. You understand our agenda, right?
I would like to understand the cost, the scaling plan a bit though. So one thing which you can consider is that EY is. So I'm working with FNA right now to build a COE within EY. That
Okay.
COE you can call upon to do a POC and all free of charge usually. I don't know what
Okay.
your arrangement is internally, but they
So
can put one process in. If it works, you can scale up. But what is your scale plan? How many are you planning to start with, and how do you see it growing?
uh,
Yeah, yeah, that's what I said. Like, initially to just pilot it with 50 to 20 users, then in a couple of months, probably we may scale up to thousands.
Okay. Okay, so
Yeah.
that is one question I had, in fact. So, Suri, can you just take that up with Abel later and then come to
Yeah.
some, give me
So
some.
Abel is not on this call now, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
now
he
he
had
has been pulled into other call.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think so. We will work on this seats and how many users. We will just work on it and then get back
So
to you with the
Yuvraj, can we have
Sure.
a call on Monday? Just you, me, Abel, and Vinod, just to
uh
discuss, about these other vendors, what the plan is, and
Yes. We should
I
have
also
that.
want to bring up a point that Uday made. Okay, so that let's discuss that on Monday.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure. And one thing, Uday, I want to know is, you said that COE, is it something which is scheduled and up running, or when it is going to be launched? Because we
So
are
that
looking
is
at
your,
a June as a time frame.
okay.
So is it something which can happen within uh, June, or we need to, what is your, do you have that visibility?
Yuvraj, can you tell me this rolls into which partner? Is it this is all this part of Shailendra's group or is it part of a different group?
Different.
Different.
Different group.
Uh,
Who's the sponsor
Suri,
here?
you can, sorry?
Who's going to be the sponsor of this project? Which partner?
He has. I just, if I can recall, Suri said
Yeah.
during our
So
last call, it is
Yeah.
Uday, this I think is going to be sponsored by Nigel Duffy, who's our AI Labs partner,
global AI
Global AI.
global
leader.
AI leader.
Okay. So right now what is happening is there's just one COE being put together in EY which will have responsibility for EY GDS, at least as far as my understanding goes. And then within that, that is currently being owned by Venkat, who's part of FNA. And that is basically, there are a couple of projects in the pipeline for that. One is basically EY risk, and the other one is basically there's another one called AML, anti-money laundering, and then there is independence. So all of these things are kind of bubbling up. So that has got about 3 people in it at this point in time. Now you can speak to Venkat and see whether there is capacity in that. I think the target timelines for all of those are around June, July, August, that sort of timeline. It is if we want to kind of do something before that, then I think if you have somebody in your team who can, we're in fact going to do a training end of this month for the getting that COE scaled up. Already one project is live. So if you want to consider, joining that training, then we can work out a way to do it alongside that. But we'll have to ultimately get Venkat to pitch in there.
Yeah, Uday, just one thing, right? The COE, right? Is it made of just EY GDS FNA guys? Is it?
No. It's going to be across different service lines. This is
Okay.
right now this is going to be a specialist team which is going to be tasked with, my understanding is, with all E8 projects within EY. So I don't know what is
So
their
Venkat
overall
knows the
scope going to
details,
be.
is it?
Yeah, Venkat knows the
Okay,
details.
I'll talk to Venkat. Okay.
Yeah.
So another thing, Uday, is about. So when we move from your platform, when we lift your solution from AWS to our server or our internal on-prem,
Hmm.
is there any changes in the functionalities, or
No,
is it
zero.
zero?
Exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so
The
that's
only
basically
thing only risk we can think about is the reporting part.
why is that a risk,
Within
as in?
in the sense, like only the only thing workable thing in within this thing is the reporting part, which is you have Tableau, we cannot do it on-prem.
So
Oh, like that.
Yuvraj,
Uh-huh.
see what Uday is saying is if we have a Tableau license,
Uh-huh.
okay, then we can get the same layout and these reporting what you see on the screen now. Okay, just
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he cannot sell you a Tableau license. You will have to go to Tableau and EY has to procure a Tableau
Oh,
license.
okay,
Now
okay.
EY in F&A is using Power BI
Power
because
BI.
they have that license. The layout on top will look different. Okay,
Okay,
but
okay.
basically the graphs and stuff will be looking the same, right? Today.
Yeah, that's what my expectation is because my
Yeah.
assumption is that Power BI, Tableau, all can
Yeah.
make the same visualizations, but
And
the
Okay.
yeah.
and one thing is, I'm sure that we have a agreement with Tableau, Yuvraj. So I think if you want, we can procure those licenses.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
And Uday, when just another thing, which technology have you used for this? I mean,
This is all .NET and Microsoft SQL
.NET.
Server.
Okay, for that workflow things, customizing task and what is it? Have you used any components for that?
All Angular, Bootstrap
Angular.
Angular, all
Okay,
that stuff.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
So
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just sending you the parameters.
sure.
and Yuvraj, and let me just talk to Venkat, okay, if possible
Okay.
today or on Monday, and
Uh-huh.
just try to get some idea about the COE that they're building up within it for it. Okay.
Sure, sure, sure.
One thing
That
which will
would be
help
great.
is Yuvraj and Suri, if you want to, and Vinod, if you want to, pilot it. See, the training I will tell you for using and building processes on Innate is actually a 3 to 4 hour training. It's a very very short. It's all click and do training. It usually lasts over 1 or 2 days though, because some homework is given. So it's a very short exercise basically. So if you
Where
want
is
to,
it happening?
so that will be happening in Bangalore. You might be
Uh-huh.
able to do it remotely also. I'm not sure. I mean, you can speak to Venkat and
Is
see.
the date finalized,
Date is
scheduled?
not finalized. It's the last week of this month, is
And
my understanding.
Uday, is Venkat's team paying something or just free or
No, it is
just
basically they're paying some standard prof services, basically not specifically for the training, but
okay?
that is something. I mean, from to us, how it is internally, I don't know.
Okay, okay. So are they? So who's working on that order? Do you know?
So when you say the
Who
order,
is
who's
working on it? No, like for the prof services.
No, no. So that is something which for the next. So one is already covered under the FNA older order,
Ah,
and then
okay,
for
okay,
RMS I will be sending out a new order.
okay,
So the POC just got
okay.
signed off earlier this week.
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine.
So then there'll be a follow-on order for that.
Got it. Oh, so this
Sure.
is part of the SOW we signed with the MSA, right?
Correct. It's part of the order along with the MSA.
Got
Correct.
it. Got it.
Right.
Got it.
And also, you can basically there is something called the Innate Academy, which will be used for that training. So that is basically an online platform. But if you want to join it, then one of our guys will be present on site for the training. And if you can take time out, then actually what you can do is, along with the training, only build this process. Which your process is pretty basic, from my understanding, from what I've just heard, with one action, one step. I mean, you'll be able to do this in like 1 hour and set it up and try it. I mean, if it is really that simple, so you can then work out.
Yeah, and Uday, do you spin up a demo site for users to check out, to get a feel of the app,
So there is
something like
something
that?
called Innate Community on the
Uh-huh.
website. You can go and register for that,
Uh-huh.
and then you will get a community platform. But
Uh-huh.
however, for for EY, I don't know what is whether you will get a new platform or you will get pointed to from to any community platform already running. You already also have a test environment running internally as part of FNA. You might be able to access that now itself. But I'm not sure you'll be able to do much in it, Yuvraj, to be honest, because without knowing what to click, there's not much you
Yeah,
can do.
yeah. But again, at least you get a feel of, how it, I mean, since you have walked us through that, probably, getting into that will give us a feel of how the app look like.
Sure, you can. I would suggest just speak to Venkat. He should be able to point you to some test box. If you can't, then just reach out to me. I mean, once you do training, I mean, I can organize one
So
sandbox for you.
once
Sure.
the training has been dates been finalized, you can let us know so we can plan if we are. We will let you know if we are joining or anything. And another thing is Vinod has just forwarded that parameter list. maybe you can have a look at it, and if you have any doubts while filling it, please feel free to reach out to us.
Sure, I'll do that. And Suri, you can come back to me on Monday, hopefully, with the scale plan and stuff like that. That will
Yeah,
be
let me
Yeah,
talk to
yeah. When we have a group call, the weekly Candolence call, maybe we'll discuss that with Suri, and he will in turn come back to you.
okay. Sounds good.
Okay. So
And
I
even,
need to drop off this. Okay.
Yeah,
But-
Uday, you can check out this mechanical Turks before getting into the, because we are looking at this. We are looking at the similar to that. You
Okay.
can have a look at the website. It will just maybe 5 minutes. It will just when you glance through, you'll get to know about it. And do you see any? So you understand our this thing? Do you feel it fits to our requirement in it?
I mean, ultimately, you're feeding in a lot of different small pieces of work which you want to track to closure against a
Yeah.
specific timeline. You might want to send some to different skill groups, and you want to not
Yes.
lose sight of any ability of any piece of work. You want to check on people's performance. You want to give some things to machines in future, log and report various parameters, everything around. That is basically what we do. I don't know the mechanical Turks whether it's just a repository which lets you log things and then close them, but whether it does all the routing things to different places, doing it as per SLAs, switching across humans and machines. I don't know if it does all of that. So one is that you can maintain a list somewhere and work against that list, but that doesn't give you optimization. Behind Innate, it might at the front end look like a simple thing, but behind it is capturing a whole lot of useful metrics and lets you extend out in different directions. So you have to just kind of, I think, decide which one works. From my perspective, it looks like a very, very straightforward case, especially after Abel mentioned you want a simple one task activity which goes somewhere.
Yes.
It is very, very easy, to be honest, from what I've heard so far.
Okay.
It's quite simple, to be honest. It's not even, it doesn't even have 2 or 3 activities, right? So it's very straightforward, feels like.
Yeah, and also you can keep us posted about that Center of Excellence, which you are planning with F&A team.
Sure.
If it's materializing, parallelly when we have that talks again, since Suri has also mentioned that he's going to talk with Venkat. So if you let us know, we can we'll see how it is happening. Maybe next week we should be able to know how we'll get a direction on how we are doing.
Sure, I'll do that. From my side, I think the only thing which I'm trying to understand, which I've anyway spoken to Suri about, whether commercially this is viable or not. From a technical standpoint, it's straightforward. If you actually want to onboard, 100 processors, then the license, value of that will be pretty high for I don't know how many transactions all. If there are a lot of if it's a very transaction heavy environment, then it will make sense because it will actually streamline all of that. If it is you're going to do
this is a new concept which we are trying out, and
okay.
we are betting on the potential business we will have through this, enabling productivity within GDS, and then futuristically we are thinking of our AI data labeling projects which will kick in. Those are all the business objectives we have. So on a immediate 1 or 2 years plan, if you see that it might not look viable, so we need to check about the pricing. Definitely that will be a key concern, but we need to check about because we need to circle back with you on that.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Maybe
All I'm saying is
Monday.
So one of your questions to me was, whether this looks like you can meet your objectives. Technically, I think I can say now I'm confident it can not only meet, it can actually give you a lot of good information which will help you improve it also. Whether from a commercial standpoint it is viable or not, that's the bit which I don't know at this point.
Okay, so that we need to discuss internally where we stand. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So thanks.
So we are almost half an hour above our time.
So I get the job then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Thanks, Yuvraj.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Happy weekend. Yeah.
You too. Bye-bye.